November 1944. Camp Breckinridge. The convoy truck rattled to a halt outside a prisoner of war camp that looked nothing like what Marta Schreiber had braced herself for. She had pictured coils of barbed wire, watchtowers manned by men with rifles, and bleak concrete structures surrounded by hostility. Instead, she found a sprawling compound beneath a wide Kentucky sky with timber barracks that looked almost livable in the pale afternoon light. Beside her sat 29 other German women, their auxiliary corps uniforms creased and dulled by the long journey westward. Marta was 24, an administrative clerk from Dresden who had convinced herself she was contributing to her country's defense. Now she was a prisoner on foreign soil, thousands of miles from anyone she loved, staring down an uncertain future that made her stomach clench with dread. The younger women seemed even more rattled. 17-year-old Lena Brandt gripped a folded photograph of her parents so tightly that the edges bent. Greta Vogel, 20 years old, fixed her gaze on the middle distance with the hollow look of someone fighting back tears. The soldiers who processed them were efficient, not hostile. They issued numbers, explained rules in English, and pointed them toward their assigned barracks. Marta, who had studied English through correspondence courses, found herself quietly translating for the others, her voice steadier than she felt. The soldiers didn't bark or threaten. They moved with a brisk, businesslike calm that was, in its own way, more disorienting than open aggression would have been. As dusk settled over the camp, a guard announced it was time to eat. The women filed silently into a broad dining hall that smelled of wood smoke and something savory they couldn't name. Long tables held metal trays and tin cups, and within minutes, a young soldier named Private Leo Ramirez began moving among them with large pots, ladling out the evening meal. Marta stared at her tray. In one bowl sat a thick, dark red stew that steamed gently in the cool air. Beside it rested a wedge of dense golden bread glistening with butter. She had no frame of reference for either. Around her, the other women sat frozen, unsure whether this was some kind of calculated trick. Lena Brandt lifted a cautious spoonful to her lips. Her expression shifted immediately, first surprise, then something closer to wonder. The stew was bold and complex, layered with spices she couldn't identify. Heat bloomed across her tongue, followed by a richness from the beans, the meat, and the tomatoes that seemed to fold together in ways no dish she had eaten back home ever had. She took a second spoonful without thinking. Marta broke off a piece of the golden bread. It was still warm, crumbling softly at the edges, with a faint sweetness she hadn't expected. When she pressed it into the stew, the combination struck her as almost clever. The mild, buttery bread pulling against the bold spice of the chili in a way that made both better. Across the hall, cook Dorothy Sims watched quietly from beside the serving station, her expression carrying the satisfaction of someone who already knew what was coming. Dorothy Sims was 58 years old and had been feeding soldiers and prisoners at Camp Breckinridge for nearly 3 years. She had watched the same scene play out with Italian prisoners, with German men, and now with these German women. That slow, reluctant softening of the face when a person realizes the food in front of them is genuinely good, that no one is starving them, that the enemy might not be monstrous after all. She nodded to Leo, who refilled the bowls of any woman who raised a hand, however hesitantly. 30-year-old Hilda Kaufmann, a former field medic from Cologne, ate methodically, her mind running ahead of her hands. For months she had lived with the absolute certainty that capture meant abuse, or worse. The propaganda she had absorbed had been specific on that point. Yet here she sat at a clean table, eating a hot and generous meal, and no one had threatened her with anything. The gap between what she had believed and what she was experiencing produced a feeling not unlike vertigo. 26-year-old Vera Lenz, who had worked as a radio operator in Berlin, refused to read anything into the meal. She ate because her body demanded it, but held her posture rigid and kept her face blank. This was a tactic, she told herself, a way to soften resistance, to buy cooperation. She would not mistake calculated generosity for genuine humanity. But even as Vera held her walls firm, she noticed things that made them harder to maintain. The guards eating the same food at nearby tables, Private Ramirez smiling when he offered more bread, and Corporal June Whitfield checking on the women with nothing in her face, but mild, professional concern. 3 weeks into captivity, routines had settled into something approaching ordinary. It was Marta Schreiber who experienced the most unlikely change when Sergeant Frank Caldwell approached her with an offer. "Miss Schreiber," he said, "Miss Sims could use help in the kitchen." "You willing?" Marta agreed. The next morning she stood in the camp kitchen before industrial pots and unfamiliar staple ingredients, feeling slightly lost until Dorothy handed her a knife and gestured to a pile of onions and peppers. "Can you chop?" Marta picked up the knife, grateful for something her hands already knew how to do. As they worked side by side, Dorothy spoke without ceremony. "In this country, we believe in feeding people right. Doesn't matter if you're a soldier or a prisoner. Everyone eats." She paused and added quietly, "My people know what it is to be treated as less than human. I won't be part of that. Not for anyone." The words landed heavily. Dorothy Sims was a black woman, offering dignity to prisoners from a nation built on the ideology of racial hierarchy. Marta understood the weight of that without needing it explained. After Germany's surrender, 11 of the women, including Marta, Hilda, Greta, Lena, and Vera, applied to remain in the United States, rather than return to a country that lay in ruins. 25 years later, in the autumn of 1969, Marta Schreiber Caldwell prepared a Thanksgiving meal at her home in Louisville. Hilda, now a registered nurse, came with her family. Greta, who had become a language teacher, brought her children. Lena arrived with a batch of Dorothy's cornbread, made from the recipe she'd been given before Dorothy passed. They raised their glasses. "To Dorothy," Marta said. The chili had been wonderful, she told them. But it was never really the food that had changed them. It was the discovery that the world was wider and kinder than anyone had told them it could be.